Hi guys, thanks again for tuning in to the Hdyh Health podcast. This is Baldo here. I'm so excited about this episode with Joe Lindley, a great friend of ours. He started a company. He's one of the co-founders of a company named Fourwards movement that inspires change, and it's fantastic. I can't wait for you guys to hear all that. But we recently got to throw a fundraiser with Joe back at the lounge in Austin at the MSW Health Lounge, because he's biking across America and to raise awareness for mental health. So that episode, or this episode, goes into that, what the inspirations were, what the story is behind who he is and what he's trying to create. And all props to him. I'm really excited for him, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. As always, this episode is sponsored by MSW Nutrition. Visit the website, mswnutrition.com, and use Hdyh Health as a code, or HDYH, to get 10% off any of the supplements. You will be hearing about different ways that we will be using those supplements to support Joe in his journey across America. So without further ado, here it is. All right, guys. Well, welcome to the Hdyh Health podcast. This is John's Nurse Doze's first
podcast
take in this room.
Yep.
So, and this is actually our first group one, and you're also the first person to be getting an IV during a podcast in this room. So there's a lot of firsts.
Yep.
I'm excited to be talking to Joe Lindley here. He is the founder of Fourwards movement, and I'm just excited to hear about your story, because we met you at Hdyh Health Fest when we were doing the thing at Native, and we connected. I know you guys talked forever, because I'm always like usually running around like, get that done, that done, like you get that shit done, and like that's I get shit done, right? And so but briefly introduce yourself to the listeners, and then we'll get right to it.
Okay, so I'm Joe Lindley. I'm a graduate of Texas A&M University.
Nice.
I guess just to give you a quick overview on Fourwards, sophomore year in college, me and a couple buddies four of us decided that we were going to go to the Grand Canyon for spring break and take a massive road trip from College Station to San Francisco and back, instead of going on the normal, partier for spring break. A lot of things went wrong. I planned the crap out of it, and almost none of those things happened. But we learned through this trip that every good story has highs and lows, and it's that contrast that really makes you appreciate your story. So that's what Fourwards movement is founded on, the mantra being keep moving forwards. FOUR is kind of represents our roots in the outdoors, so like the 4 elements, the 4 seasons, the 4 cardinal directions, all of that. And it's really story-based, of like our I guess tagline is our world, your story, meaning it's all of our world, but it's your story. You hold the pen, write your own story. Yeah. And so we're really focused on telling people stories of perseverance and resilience, and using those stories to help other people that might be in the same situation get through their circumstance.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
And we talked in December at our friend Zach's get together. I think that's what it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Live a Great Story.
Live a Great Story one. And so
that's where we first met.
Yeah,
right.
So
yeah.
I think you were running around. I think we had some.
I got to introduce myself, but it was we didn't communicate.
And there was a couple of speakers that were already going, and actually, what the weird thing is that whenever there's talks like that, I try to make our friends speeches and all that. But since you're usually running the operation, you're like making sure like is everything else behind the scenes doing well. And I think that's where we came across each other. And I was like, so what do you do? I love hearing about what people do, because in Austin, when we talked about earlier, there's so many movers and shakers here that they have all kinds of different things that they're trying to do, most likely tell their story. And so, you talked about, your story about how you got into this. And the best thing about a story is that it describes your path, and it can be an example for someone else. It can say that, you can do this too. You can explore, you can see what's out there, you can take a risk. And I like people who take risks. Right. I mean, so you're starting off this company. You told me some great news earlier. You got a bunch of momentum going. Right. What is your company like? Really, what is it that you see your company doing long term for people?
So long term, really the biggest concept is we're developing a community. The biggest thing being that we want people to feel like they don't have to sacrifice their growth to fit in. That's been a big aspect. I know that you and I talked about that. Like outgrowing your friends is one of the roughest things you can do. But I think surrounding yourself with growth-minded individuals is really where it all is, because it gives you that sense of community. And doing the risky thing can be lonely. So we want people to, not be held back by not having a community. We want to have people there to support them through those risky endeavors.
And so when you say community, describe what this community looks like.
It's a community of, I like to call them adventurers, and you can be an adventurer, in your hometown or in just your city, or you can be an adventurer of the world. People that are really just open-minded to new experience, whether that's, jumping out of a plane or just going for a walk with a stranger. It could be either end of that spectrum, but people who want to push their growth zone and really grow together with other people. So as far as like what this company is going to be, is we're actually working on an app right now, which we're really excited about. It's called The Path, and we'll get into like the details of that more later. But as of right now, we have these, inspirational clothing. The idea behind this clothing is, you pass someone on the street and they read your shirt and maybe they don't, process it within like the first couple seconds, but as they walk down the sidewalk, they kind of repeat it in their head, and it might give them some sort of like subconscious ability to like persevere, be more resilient. So as of right now, we have like a ton of Fourwards phrases, obviously playing off the Fourwards, which gets really confusing to just say it and not write it. But our last one was "They're just growing pains," and it was kind of a symbol of 2020 and COVID and everyone going through their growing pains and the pain of what that whole year brought us. But it also brought us to an entirely different level of being for a lot of people. For me, it's like Fourwards grew a ton. I know for y'all are in this whole new building, which is incredible. And so it's really just reframing the things that you go through, the rough times you go through, is like, all right, what is this trying to teach me and how can I grow from this?
Yeah. And you can share stories, you can share inspiration, you can say, hey, maybe this is a tool that I used to get through this, right? And, I don't know if you want to get into it or not, but we've talked about mental wellness a lot. And I think what really your company deals with directly is mental wellness, right? I think that's what you're trying to do, is create a community for people who are, and we spoke about this earlier,
Yep.
Imagine you are depressed, and if you think about the tone of that, and if there's energy to just shift it because I said it that way, did I hit a nerve? And I think that's a stigma we need to remove, because really mental wellness should be a positive thing in our lives. And if it's something as simple as connecting with individuals, I mean, that's more than what we need right now in this past year, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely want you to get into, like, you're doing a biker across America kind of deal, right? And and that is to bring awareness to mental health, right? Is that's
Yes.
part of the
Let's hear
goal?
about that.
But before you get into that, why do you think that it's almost like a thing for people not to want to talk about it? Like, I mean, I agree, it's important to bring it up to the front, but why do you think it's not yet?
I don't know. I think it's definitely a vulnerability thing. I mean, vulnerability is one of the hardest things for people to do because they hate to, for some reason, humanize themselves.
Yeah.
Like as humans, all of us in one light or another have struggled with mental wellness, throughout our lives. Mental health. Mental health.
Yeah, that's a thing too. I know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, sure. I mean, we should. That's
a thing. There it is. You got your new hashtag right there.
Health.
Mental healthness.
Let me help you get through that mental healthness.
I like that a lot. Actually, that was just a total that didn't even happen on purpose.
Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah.
We've all struggled with mental healthness at one point or another in our life. And at some point, I think previous generations definitely demonized it. It was like, you have to go through your own battles alone. And like the greatest generation did that, like the baby boomers did that, and it was like, you should just always stay strong. And especially as males, I think that we're like one of the last groups of people that that is kind of coming to light. Like, we want to talk about it. We don't want people to feel alone in their journey, because that's one of the hardest parts about mental wellness. Is like, if you're struggling with depression, if you're struggling with anxiety, if you're struggling with panic attacks, all those things, if you don't talk about it, you don't talk about it with your friends and realize that the other people are going through that as well. I think that's the biggest thing is like, oh, this is not just happening to me. I can have some sense of like relief knowing that this is normal.
Yep.
Yeah.
And bringing that to light is kind of one of the big things for me with Forwards is like I struggled with like depression, anxiety, and a lot of that growing up. And also I was diagnosed with ADD as like a 14-year-old kid. And I'd always been ADD, obviously, but I finally got diagnosed and put on Vyvanse and all that stuff, and I just like can't even get started on all of that. But I was really at risk of falling through the cracks. You know, like my school was not really tailoring to like this creative kid who really just needs a really good creative outlet and a ton of energy to put it into. And so luckily I had two people step into my life, my sculpture teacher, who really just gave me that immediate outlet of creativity. Like, what do you want to create? Create it with glass, with metal, with like welding, woodworking, whatever you want. And that was honestly my catharsis. That's what I put all of my energy into. I ended up doing like AP sculpture and all that stuff and getting college credit. But also my math tutor was the one who showed me like, hey, like you are able to focus if you need to, you know, like sometimes it is necessary to sit down and do the things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And he taught me like, even though I was terrible at math, like I was awful, he taught me that I was actually really capable of math. And he was like, it just required a whole lot more focus for me. And so I ended up taking like one of the top math classes at the end of high school by that time, because it was just like, all right, I am capable. It's not a matter of capability. It's just a matter of I have to try a little bit harder than some people might to like sit here and focus on this.
Yeah.
And so the point with the mental wellness is like I want to bring all that to light. I want to tell my story. I want to tell other people's story about mental health and take away the stigma. You know, everyone has struggled with it. How can we tell our stories? How can we make other people feel less alone?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's, I guess you're doing much more than just saying we're sharing stories. You're actually making this a point to incorporate this into your training, your exercise, your physical activity. So go back to the bike. Right. So
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Okay, so a big aspect of mental health for me is the lactic acid, the working out, the giving that outlet for something, and then also training. I found out over the last 4 months that it was easier for me to focus and stay focused on something long term, like for instance training every single day, if I was training for something.
Yeah, we were talking about that last week, right? Where I
and
was
it-
like, yeah, dude, I need something to train for.
I just it's something to train for, something to like have like an end goal in mind, where it's like, all right, there's no excuses. Like whether I wake up today and go biking or not, like if I decided against it, like I'm still doing that thing later, so I might as well make that thing I'm doing later a little bit easier by actually showing up today.
Yep.
And so training for something, I started out with the marathon, which John completely saved my marathon. He gave me this book called Chi Running. I changed my running form during the marathon, and I am convinced to this day that that's what actually helped me finish, because I was in so much pain. I trained for only a single month. That was dumb. But going into this next thing we're training for, I decided to give myself a little bit more time, because I think it's going to require a little bit more training. But I decided in order to, bring light to mental health, we needed to do something kind of extreme. Something that, everyone wants to travel, everyone wants to do those things, but do something that not everyone would just be like, yeah, sign me up. Like, sure, I'll do it. Or like something really kind of unfathomable. Like it's hard to fathom 75 days or 55 days. Like you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, that's, this amount of time, but doing something nonstop. So we were like, how can we incorporate those two things for like something that people respect, but also like can't really fathom. So we decided that I was going to ride my bike across the country for mental health awareness. And that kind of just started as an idea. I told my strategist this, and she was like, all right, well, you're locked in. And I was like, I just mentioned something, and I'm locked in. She was like, yeah, you're locked in. That sounds like a great idea. So we're going to figure it out. And that's what we've been doing. So we just partnered with Mental Health of America. And we're really, really excited about that, because the biggest goal is to bring awareness to mental health. And we wanted to actually have a fundraiser that was, 55 days long. So the distance of this ride is from the Outer Banks, North Carolina, and connecting with Route 66 in Oklahoma City, and then riding Route 66 all the way to the end of Santa Monica Pier. And that's 2,752 miles. And, you know, who knows how many other miles are added whenever we have to take back roads and all this stuff. But it's going to be about, if we did 50 miles a day, which is what the plan is, because we want other people to come join us, and I'll get more into that in a minute, but it would take about 55 days.
Yeah.
And it will take about 55 days, because the whole theme of the trip is Fourwards, we go further together, which really signifies like the importance of tribe and how people have kind of slowly forgotten that, like how much further you can go with, like, you know, us, like the people supporting you, the people that are cheering you on. It's like, you know, people want to have this lone wolf mentality, but we didn't evolve that way.
Yeah.
We evolved with oxytocin and serotonin and like that need for connection. And so we want to show people, like, whenever your friends cheer you on and whenever your friends come and help you and like suffer with you, like that mutual suffering, you'll not only get closer to your goal, but you'll get closer as people.
That's right.
And so we want to have, and the idea is to have friends come out and ride for a couple days. And that's why we're only shooting for 50 miles a day, because I don't think people are going to want to come in and bike 100 miles a day. You know, they're going to be like, this is awful. They want to have some aspect of enjoyment, but the goal is to kind of to do it in a more comfortable way so that other people are willing to come and join and then share that experience together, because, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's all about who you share your journey with. Like the end goal is great. The destination is even better, but it's about who you share it with that's most important.
Yeah.
Plus, it makes it more fun, right?
So much more fun. And it makes it go so much faster. Like if I'm talking to someone for 5 hours a day on a bike, like next to me, you know, maybe we're like suffering, so we're not talking for a couple hours, but it's that much easier. Otherwise, I'm just looking at the road, or I'm looking, you know, however many miles in front of me that I can.
We used to do a bike to the coast when we were in college. We were in a fraternity together, and it was 180 miles, so it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't that, but it was still it was the same approach. It was fundraiser for, you know, awareness.
Leukemia.
There's
right?
leukemia.
Yeah, it was for leukemia. And then we used to just throw a big ass party at the beach, right?
Which I imagine we'll probably do for you.
Yeah, I hope I see y'all at the end.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, dude. We'll be there.
We'll be there. We'll be there.
We'll be like, hurry up, dude! Like, come on, you got a few more miles.
Be like, give me my moment, please.
Yeah,
I know,
Like,
right?
You did mention something about a wolf pack in there, and that brought to light the idea, because the first question I asked you was about, like, why do you think it's a thing that people don't want to talk about it? And you know, and it's weird because there is, like, with injuries, people talk about it, maybe even pride themselves about like physical injuries and stuff like that. But in the dog world, the wolf world, like whenever a dog is injured or a wolf is injured, they don't complain because they get left behind. And so evolution had it where, like, the ones that did complain, the pack would know and they would just leave it behind because it would hold them back. And it's like, but that's not really how it is. For some reason, that's how they approached it. And then it just became that wolves and dogs, that's why, they don't complain. They just keep going, right? Like, they can break a leg and they're just like, hell yeah. Like, they're just like, whatever, right? Because that's just how they evolved. So I wonder how much of that is in us in the mental aspect, right? Because it's false. Like, it doesn't help us. For some reason, it evolved that way, circumstance, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right way, which it isn't.
Well, you lose part of your wolf pack. You lose part of your pack, which is unfortunate because I think that's almost like counterintuitive, with the idea of strength in numbers.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, which I don't know. It's our instinct to come back and try to help people when you see they're injured. That's what separates us from.
But then
other
again,
species.
who was hunting them, right? That is like, we have to leave them behind,
Right.
or else we're all dying, right? Like,
Yeah.
but then that became a thing, and then that's how it evolved. And I don't know if any of that is in us as well too. It's just a thought.
I think it's also like the problem-solving capability of humans versus wolves.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, like
They
you have
wouldn't
an
know.
extra
They wouldn't know
brain.
how to. Yeah, they wouldn't know how to tape up the broken leg. Right, like, that sucks, man. I guess you're done. Nice knowing you, buddy.
Yeah.
And the rest of us is like, yeah, dude, you can carry me, or at least you can, like, tape it up for me with a splint.
Stop being a bitch, right?
Yeah,
Fucking carry me, right?
Get 'em, oh, that's why we don't want to bring your ass.
Yeah.
It's funny because we were. Well, it's funny because we were talking with the guy yesterday, Justin, and we're going hiking next month, and he was telling me, he's like, hey, did you look at the inventory list for the pack? The stuff. And I was like, well, I haven't looked yet, but I bet it's all fine. He goes, no, you don't understand. You have to carry all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's right. I didn't think about it. So then I'm thinking like, oh crap.
It's about see, that's the thing. We get to the goal where like, can we get it down to 45 pounds, right? Because it could be 75 pounds of gear to climb up there.
But you heard we. It wasn't like I'm going to get it down to where I'm going to go out by myself and go climb these freaking mountains that I don't really know how to do.
Well, the idea is if he gets it to 45 or if I get it to 45, and then I'm sharing that information, right? It's like, this is what I did to get it down to 45 pounds, so you can do it as well.
So like when you're journaling, you know, we talked about that earlier. Like, you know, I already kind of see it now, like the whole across the country deal. Most of the time, people learn by like visual or writing down, right? And so when I went to learn camping, because I didn't know it, I wrote everything down and I just studied it. So I gotta imagine, like at one point, I was looking. This comes to your training. So I wore pants that were like really insulated, and we were in the desert hiking. And it was, you know, March, but it wasn't like 100 degrees, but it was still, you know, hot enough. And then I wasn't prepared for the hike we were doing because there was a lot of lifting of the legs and moving around, and I didn't drink enough water. So halfway down, coming back, I was about to cramp up like really bad to the point where like I wasn't gonna be able to lift my legs anymore. And there was a bunch of cactus I was having to lift my legs over.
This is also an 8-hour hike.
This is an 8-hour hike in the desert with a million cacti around you. And so I told Baldo, I said, dude, I'm sorry. Like I really was gonna have to ask him, like, are you gonna have to carry me? Because like I could not move. Every time I lifted my leg, it just like electricity would just run through my leg because it was so tired and cramped up. And I remember Baldo had told me, he's like, hey, if you get a boost, just put that straight in your mouth. You don't even need water. And for the listeners, Boost is our energy drink, which Joe and I are consuming at this moment. It's a multivitamin with natural caffeine in it, and it has a bunch of liver detoxers, and it even has glutathione in there. Anyway, usually mix it with water. Well, I just put it straight in my mouth. Like it was a lot. It was a lot at first because it's powder, right? And it's a big packet.
It's a lot powder.
And so I was like, oh, it's not bad. You know, it's like a big candy, you know, like a pop, I don't know.
Pop Rocks.
Like Pop Rocks or something like that.
Well, it's like if you're putting like 3 pixie sticks in your mouth.
Yeah,
at the same
so like
time.
you can easily foam up. So, but you don't
Your
have any
mouth
saliva, right? Like you're dehydrated. And so I'm like, whatever. So I get whatever I can. 15 minutes later, cramps are gone and I'm peeing. And that was a game changer because then I'm like, oh, I'm able to finish. I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't bring up the conversation like, oh my God, you're going to have to carry me, dude. Like none of that. Like I finished strong. So like the idea of that chi running and all that, you're going to learn what it takes to like get you across this entire country. And what happens is you have a blueprint for someone that says, well, I thought that was like, you know, impossible. And you're like, no, it's possible. This is exactly how you do it. So in the future, when it comes up, when you're like, hey, I'm about to cramp up, what do? I'm like, you remembered that you have a boost packet in your pocket, and you're like, here we go, and bam, that's what got you through the last leg.
Well, it's crazy because we've done, Justin and I, our other partner in this, we've done like 16, 18-hour like climbs where we're just out of water, out of food, and there's always that boost packet on the side because that's like, it's got every nutrient possible, and you just like, and then it's like you just have all this energy all of a sudden, but you don't want it to get to that point, obviously.
Yeah, you want to do it beforehand.
Well, that's what we talked about with your running, right? And I think that book kind of showed it. It's like, this is prevention. I think what you're saying, like preventing injuries, and you literally did that in real time, right?
Straight up.
That's pretty incredible because you finished your marathon. Was this your first one?
First one.
It was your first marathon. You trained a whole month.
If it were not my first marathon, I would have known better than to only train a month.
That's probably what Aaron got confused because you were running that weekend or last weekend, and then you had talked about biking across America. So Aaron was telling everyone, like, oh yeah, he's running across America.
Oh, like Forrest Gump style. People are like, it's badass, dude. I'll sign up for that, dude. I'll pay you whatever, man. I'll donate. Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then we'd have to be with you like as a traveling van, right? But at least with the bike, you're gonna have certain stops. I'm sure there'll be certain landmarks you do. Will you go hang out with some friends around the country too? Like maybe try to get them to come along. Hey, I'm gonna be in your neck of the woods. You should come by and come do a couple miles with me.
Also, there's a little bit more flow with biking for me. Come to find out in the past couple weeks, like to where you kind of just get in that state of like really intense creative thought. Than there was running, because running is like a little bit more jarring on your knees and on your ankles, and you're like, this kind of sucks. Whereas biking for me, it's like there's that constant, lactic acid pain in your thighs, but it's not jarring. It's not really painful. It's one of those things that you kind of like start to tune out after a while. And so it's really, really cathartic for me, and honestly like brings on a lot of creativity. Because you talked about impossible to like ride across the country, and the book I'm reading right now is called The Art of Impossible. And it talks about impossible with a lowercase I and impossible with an uppercase I. And impossible with a lowercase I is like what I think is impossible for me.
Yeah.
And with an uppercase is like what has never been done before.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool to like get into that because it talks about how extreme sports athletes are the ones that are constantly just overcoming the capital I impossible. They're doing
Yeah.
the craziest stuff because they're constantly in that flow.
Right.
What's that also that idea of impossible versus I'm possible, right? Like I can fucking create anything.
Yeah,
Right.
and I wanted you to kind of lead into that. It's kind of by coincidence, but I didn't like that word I said. But it's like it almost motivates you. And I know sitting in front of you and sitting in front of Baldo, that's a word in your vocabulary that you don't like. I've never really agreed with impossible because that just means I haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. I believe in improbable, but not in impossible.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's your mentality. So
Yep.
let's talk about that. You talk about mental wellness. What would be your mentality knowing that you've basically wrote this check now and you got to like cash it now? So like, all right, I'm going cross country.
Fully
It's happening.
committed.
I'm fully committed. What's the mental game now? Like, what's the approach?
It's to get rid of the limiting mindset. You know, like that's why I'm reading this book, like The Art of Impossible. Is like, you know, so many people think that things are impossible, but it's really like I firmly believe that people are capable of almost anything they want. I think the first place to start there is you have to have curiosity for something because that's what leads to passion and that's what ultimately drives you to fulfill that impossible task. Like you're not going to like if I'm not passionate about space, I'm not going to become an astronaut, you know, like that's impossible probably because I'm just not going to do all the work to get there. But like I'm extremely curious about human drive, about mental health, about, you know, how we can push the limits of our body and our mind. Like that's one of my biggest curiosities. Like that's why I love reading books about it. That's why I love doing things that, you know, like, you know, training for a marathon for a month. It's like, let me see what's possible for the body. You know, like it sucked. It was very painful.
Yeah.
I was in here a couple times just to like help save it, but it was possible, you know, and I made it happen. So it's like, how can we continue to push those boundaries? Because the ultimate goal with Fourwards and kind of my own personal brand, kind of a little bit outside Fourwards, is like, how can I show people how much more they're capable of than they think they are?
Yep.
You know, because I started off January, I was just like an average guy. I'm not saying like I'm above average now, but I'm in a lot better shape. I'm in a lot better mental clarity and mental state, and just like feel so much better about life, and just so much happier. And obviously, happy is like up and down, but I think that contrast is just the inevitable, right? Like you can't have one without the other. So like, but it is a constant state of like contentment, whatever the word is, to where I just feel really good about the path and life and all of that. And so that's kind of my drive with this thing across the country is like, let me show you the highs and especially the lows. Like there's going to be days where we're going to be documenting this and I'm going to be like a monster, I'm sure.
Yep.
But like, how can I come out on the other side and be like, I got through that. Like that day was awful. Like we had 5 flat tires in a single day, and that was extremely frustrating because every like 5 miles I got a flat. You know, like whatever that looks like. And of course, I'm speaking that into existence now. But it's just like, you know, what are we capable of getting through, and just that perseverance, that resilience of like how much more capable we are than we think we are.
Yeah.
And appreciating the journey that is what you're doing, and learning more about who you are, how far you can push yourself, and the anticipation of what's to come after you've accomplished it. And what's interesting is when you listen to yourself talk about it, at no point do I believe this won't happen. Right? Like this is going to, I mean, you've already done it. Like that's how I look. You've already done it. You've accomplished it. Right? Now you're visualizing and feeling what it's like after you're done. You almost feel the tiredness, and you keep talking about lactic acid and the fatigue, and you like, I know that's going to be the worst feeling ever because it's 55 days straight of that, you know. But then if you already know that feeling, you're like, well, I know what to do now. And so then that's the next thing you start thinking about, and you start planning for that. And so it's more about looking forward ahead, right? To be able to say, all right, what else can I plan for that I might not understand what's going to come up, but I'll have a tool ready. And that's how you prepare yourself for the impossible or the improbable. Is the idea is like it's like Batman, right? I have a utility belt and I got 10 things. I got the bat spray, I got the bear spray, I got the shark spray, I got whatever I need to like, make it go away. And you're like, how many things does he have in that belt? But like when you're out in the desert, when you're out on a bike, and maybe it's say like you went so far that no one's behind you, you're like, shit, I gotta change that tire. And then now I'm fucking cramping
Yeah.
up. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh, all right.
Can you
what do
change a tire pretty quickly?
I haven't changed one yet.
Oh,
There we
yeah.
go. See, there we go. See, that's number one right there. You got to change the
Right.
tire.
Yeah.
So, but once you got it, you don't have to worry about that later.
And it's that I like what you just said about the belt. I think the belt is extremely important because it's a part of that like background. It's those intrinsic drivers, right? If I was just like in here, just some average Joe, right? Just being like, I'm gonna ride my bike across the country, and they're like, you're like, oh, for what? I'm like, oh, for fun. Oh, well, that's gonna be a lot harder.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a lot harder than having that intrinsic driver of like, I'm doing it for mental health awareness. I'm doing this for a cause. I'm doing it for, my friend who I lost or something like that. It's like that added ammunition that's like, why am I going right now? It's not just I'm doing this because I want to. I mean, a part of me definitely does. A part of me is also like, why the heck are you doing this? But it's like, I'm doing this for what it stands for. I'm doing this to show people the importance of tribe and community. And so like, that's another tool in my tool belt. Like, I'm going to be pulling these things out left and right on crappy days, like, all right, well, this is why I'm here. Like, in Sterquilinius and Venator, like, in filth it shall be found. Like, the place where you least want to look is the place that you should look. Yeah. And so it's like the pain, the crappiness, the muck, like all of that, like that is the reminder in those crappy moments. So like, this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
And enjoying that, right? The pain and the suffering, the blisters and the cramps and the soreness and the pain again.
The pain.
Like, because do you believe that pain makes life worth living?
I think that it's feel. It's like, one of my 4 words is like, at least we feel. I think that like, if we didn't have that pain, there wouldn't be that contrast of that absolute, joy or whatever the opposite of pain is,
Yep.
And I think that also like, pain is what really builds you, like that ability to get through those things and to realize that like, something else is more worth it on the other side of that pain. Like, the pain is what stops so many people from fully pursuing whatever it is. That could be loss, that could be physical pain, that could be mental pain, like, whatever that is. I think that, we have to kind of chase that a little bit.
I think so, because once you have the pain relief, that feeling is way better than when the pain started. Because the pain's more like, how long can I take this? But the second that you get pain that's gone, the world gets better. Like, everything's better.
But you couldn't appreciate that.
But you couldn't appreciate it. It's like a person with chronic pain. And this is just a perfect example of what a negative feedback system looks like. If I live in a state of chronic pain, that's all my body knows. That's a chronic cycle of I get up every morning and the first thing I'm going to think about, the first thing I'm going to experience, the first thing that's going to hit me is pain. And then I'll live with that the rest of the day. So I don't know anything else but pain. So if I have this pain that might not be a good thing, maybe we'll look at it as a bad thing, it follows me on everything I do all day. Every person I interact with, every time that there's a spill in front of me, every time there's a car that cuts me off. I'm already in pain, so my mental set is that I'm not really going to be happy or maybe focused or all there because I have this thing that's just gnawing at me all day.
Yeah.
Right? And so whenever you address that, it's probably the hardest thing because most people don't necessarily want to address what would get rid of that. And if you tell me, like, what's really going to get rid of all your pain, your mental pain, it's going to be physical pain.
Yeah.
It's going to be 55 days of the most grueling physical pain you've ever had in your life. And you're going to hate every second of it. But when you're done, you will unlock the key to everything you could ever imagine. And you would say, that sounds totally worth it. And then you're going to talk to this with people, and people will support you. And half of them are going to say, I don't think I could ever do that. But more power to you, I'll support you. And you're going to turn around and say, no, you can do it too. Because I'm an average Joe, but you're not. I'm just your typical guy next door that wants to put forth the effort. And I'm just trying to show you that you can accomplish anything if you put forth the effort, right? I mean, this is the thing, like 55 days clear across the country, and the more you say it, the more it becomes the norm, right? Because now what you do is you
She's
change.
like, I'll go for 60.
It's like, yeah. You're just like, well, I'm gonna go 50
Turn
days.
around.
50 days, right? Like, and you say, all right, now that negative feedback system changes from pain, 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 pain to joy, 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 relief, relief, satisfaction, satisfaction.
Well, your brain learns to shoot for that because it knows that there's a bigger outcome. Like, have you done any neuro-linguistic programming studies, NLP?
Mm-mm.
So I just sat through a 3-day training, and you'll like this because like there's 2 ways to be motivated from a neuro-linguistic programming aspect. There's forwards motivated or towards motivated and away from motivated. Away from motivated being like the idea that, like, let's say losing weight, for example. I want to lose 40 pounds. And away from motivated could be from like, well, because I don't want to be made fun of anymore. I don't want to like it's the focus of like I don't want these things anymore, like the I don't wants that are motivating me to get as opposed to like, well, because I want to be able to like be there for my family and blah blah, and that's more like towards
Right.
motivated.
I like that.
The problem with being away from motivated is that as you move away from those things, you become less motivated. And it gets you into this feedback because that's the motivation, is to not have that. And as you're not having those things anymore, then it's like, oh, well, I'm good here, right? Because like I'm not that. And then you get into this like a self like you're just like making yourself again eat more again and start gaining some weight, and then you become motivated again, and then you get in that little space and you're not moving forward. Because you're not forward motivated, you're away from motivated.
You lose that fuel after a while, and it starts bringing you back down to earth.
Yeah,
And I think like attaching yourself.
It's like self-sabotage, right?
Right.
Because like how do I get motivated again? Well, I gotta get bad again so I can be motivated again. And it's that shift of like, well, what is my true motivation? That could be a positive thing as opposed to a negative thing, because a positive thing will keep moving me forward. If anything, I become more motivated as I get closer to that goal if I'm forwards motivated.
Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot. I actually hadn't thought about it that way because, for instance, I had a catalyst in my life that happened at the beginning of the year, and that was my reverse motivation, right? It was like something that happened behind me, and I wanted to get away from that version of myself. And that drove me like halfway through up to the marathon. And then once the marathon happened, it's like, all right, what next? Like I burnt that fuel up, like that was all my fuel. I got to attach myself to something to pull me that direction rather than like running from something. And so now it's like, all right, you have to find that passion. You have to find that purpose. And like that purpose was really like me attaching to this ride, right? And whatever's on the other side of this ride, because I have no idea. I have to start with the ride. Yeah. But like, I like that. I hadn't thought about it that way because my brain had subconsciously made that decision. All right, like you've lost the fuel here. You burnt it all up.
Yeah.
Like you've achieved the maximum potential that you can through this small event. Now find something bigger, something outside of yourself to attach yourself to so that you can have even more strength to be able to continue going and continue bettering yourself.
So it's like it couldn't be like, well, I want to ride across America so I'm not fat anymore, right? Like that would never work because the moment you're training for like 2 weeks and you start losing some weight, you're no longer
and you're
motivated.
like, I'm already in good shape. Why would I put myself through 55 days of grueling tasks?
I know, it's really hard. But you have this, you talk about that limitation you were talking about earlier. So like the term 30-day challenge is thrown around loosely. And so it's a way to change your mindset, right? You do a different habit for 30 days and all of a sudden it's your new routine. But whenever someone accomplishes it, we're all competitive by nature, especially Americans. And so there's like, all right, tell me what to do. I'll do it. 30 days. Now what? That was it. Now what? You're looking on to the new motivation, the next challenge. And if you don't believe me, hear this. So Baldo and I, we were helping this lady lose weight. And she was coming in every day to get ready for a wedding, for her son's wedding.
Oh, that's right.
And she wanted to lose, I don't know, 20, 25 pounds, right? And I said, all right, cool. Well, this is what you have to do, and this is what it looks like, and this is how much dedication you have to have, because you can probably get there, but how long do you have? And she's like, well, I have this long. Yeah, okay, we're pushing it, but it's possible. Just, meet us halfway. Do your part, show up here, and then do your stuff at home. She gets And like
She starts looking really good.
She loses weight. She does great. She's like, guys, she comes in like the week of the wedding, and she's like, I'm right there where I want to be at. I feel really comfortable. I feel great. I can't wait to just go and just eat all that cake and just eat like
pizza.
The pizza.
It's like I can't wait to start having pizza again.
Like and so we're sitting there looking at her. And like, keep in mind, we saw her like 3 times a week.
Your jaw's like mine is
we
right
saw her
now.
like 3 times a week for a while.
What have you
Well, the thing is that
learned?
she's telling us, I feel great. I've never felt better. Like,
I've never
so,
felt better. She didn't say anything about the weight loss. She started talking about how great she felt. She's sleeping better. Like her blood pressure's gone down. Like all these things.
She's gonna look great in the dress.
She's
and
gonna look great in the dress. She's gonna get all these compliments. Her skin's looking great. And then she's like, and I cannot wait to go back to my old life of the way I looked before I put all this effort in. Like that's literally what she's almost saying verbatim. And nothing else is said for the next 30 seconds. And she does not pick up on it. She said she doesn't say it at all. So like at all.
It's the most interesting
And it
thing,
was really credible because this is a very successful person. This is not by any means an uneducated person. This is a very successful person. And she is like, I know what it takes to be successful in the corporate world, the business world, whatever. And when it comes to my own personal health, the biggest investment that would ever be made on anyone's part, she only did it for 30 days or, 40
like
days.
45, I think.
Yeah,
or something
45
like that.
days, and then said, that's it. And we just looked
And
like,
he was even looking forward.
And the truth is, here's what happened. So here's what happened. So I said, no, it's not it. Like, why would you do this? And blah, blah, blah. And like, so I kind of do this. I don't get on her, but I'm like, come on, think about it from a different perspective. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Still haven't seen her.
Never seen her again. Yeah.
And it was just fascinating because we talked about it one time a couple months later. I'm like, I wonder if she put the weight back on. Because that's the first thing I go to, right? Because to me, that tells me everything I need to know. It's like, a grade, right? Is it better to earn a grade or to keep a grade, right? So like here, she earned it, but then she didn't keep it.
People don't realize that, like, okay, yes, it took this much effort to get to this point, but you don't
It's
realize
so much easier to sustain it.
it's so much easier to
Is it?
sustain it, but
Is
at the same time, you got to keep all those things out that helped you, that like were the cause of you getting to that old
Well,
place.
that's what took her back because, like you said, backwards movement, it pulled her back because that old negative feedback.
What it was is it was probably like I don't want to look bad in a dress. I don't want people to look at me at the wedding because I'm standing in the front because she was someone in the wedding, right? So she was probably being motivated by the fact that she didn't want things to look a certain way for her or people to think a certain way about her since she was going to be front center.
right.
But it was a
It's
mindset from the beginning. She wanted to lose weight.
Yeah.
She didn't say, I want to be healthier. I want to sleep better. I want to go to the bathroom more consistently. I want better skin. She said, I want to lose 20, 25 pounds so I can fit into this dress. And everyone who's looking at me says, wow, you look incredible.
Yeah.
For just
that night.
that night, which is intentional, to say the least. But the mindsets of people saying that consistently day in and day out is everything they choose in life. They say, like, all right, I choose to put this much effort just towards this. And it's not a bad thing. It's just more of like, what's that going to get you? If I were to say your life is going to be better because you went through the pains and struggles of failing over and over again for the first 10 years in business, but it led you to your billionaire company that you started because you figured it out and you know what to do afterwards to say, hey, on mile 2,000, I know that this is what's going to get me to mile 3,000 because I learned from the first 3 times I did it. Like the hike we're going in Colorado, we're not bringing anyone else with us yet because we're going to go try it first, and then we want to feel comfortable with it so when somebody else can do it, they can say, hey, show me how to do it. But with you, imagine this. Someone's not going to come up to you and just say, hey, Joe, teach me how to bike across the country. That's not what they're asking you because that's not what the issue is. Mm-hmm. Like, what, you want to get in shape? You want to lose weight? No, they're not asking for that. That lady was asking us for weight loss. She wasn't asking us for anything else. So I misunderstood it. I was thinking like, well, should I give her everything that we did and wasn't appreciated? On whose department? Like, was it hers or ours? It wasn't appreciated because we did our part. I feel satisfied doing the job. When you get done with it and you help someone change their mindset, imagine they gave up halfway and they said, this is all I could do. but they did every single thing that they could possibly do to help out the situation. You're like, dude, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
You gave it your all. And then one day they're going to say, all right, I'll see you on the next round, and I'll make sure we'll get further next time.
Yeah.
How many people are riding all the way?
Me.
You're the only one that's doing the
Same.
whole thing.
Yeah.
And then because the idea is that anyone can join at any point for whatever amount of time.
And the mindset is, I'm just going to do it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then how many people are going to go with you and say, I want to go a little bit further? I think I could probably pull another couple days.
And I want to stress that actually because I like if this is going to be public, which I want everybody to hear this podcast. This is me doing the ride and starting the ride and walking out of the Atlantic Ocean alone and getting on a bike and with my buddy Patrick, who's going to be driving and filming the whole thing. But we're coming out of the ocean alone, and the goal is we don't walk into the Pacific alone. You know, like I want everyone to know that by no means is this like my journey. Like this is the journey of like everybody, right? And I want as many people to join as we possibly can. Like if you want to come join for a couple days when we ride through your city, great. If you decide that you want to throw some stuff in our car and ride the entire rest of the way across the country and walk into the Pacific Ocean together, I want you to join us because this is about community at the end of the day. You know, it's not about my story. It's about Fourwards movement and creating that community and that tribe and that group of people that can go through hardship together.
That's right.
You know, so like if you this sounds like something that you want to do, that you can sacrifice your time and you want to meet cool people and have incredible experiences along the way and do something that a lot of people wouldn't, please, by all means, like we want your company.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so incredible. I mean, I'm sorry. I just envision like Forrest Gump. Like really, like people are like, you found it, man. Like you just got it. I just woke up one day and he got it. You know, I'm just joining you. I love it.
And I promise I won't just like turn around on you in the middle of the country and be like, I'm going home
tired
now. I'm tired now.
That's funny. Yeah. Where and so there's gonna be a website where they can follow you.
Yeah.
And
so
see the path and
so
all that.
forwardsmovement.com. We're actually entirely revamping our website right now, but there's gonna be a RAM aspect, which is right across America. It's kind of what we're gonna call it. So there's gonna be a map where it's like day by day. Like here's the update. Here's where we plan on being in a couple days.
Nice.
And we want to have some sort of forum where it's like, hey, like we're looking for this. And also a big catch of it is going to be we want people keeping up with that because we just figured out that we're going to be driving a food truck.
Oh yeah.
But it's not like obviously for food truck purposes we're going to repurpose it and then use like the cooking equipment to like make our own food, but
That's awesome.
That's badass.
That's
we're
awesome.
going to have a rooftop shower. And I've of course tried to make it more difficult on us. We're not gonna sleep in any hotels.
Of course.
The only way to like sleep in a warm bed or have a hot shower is gonna be if someone out of the hospitality of their home like offers that up.
That's incredible. That is awesome. Good for you.
So
That's awesome.
You know, like
Good for
we
you.
go further together. Like, please, if you are hearing this, and I'm on day 29, and we haven't had a shower since we walked into the Atlantic Ocean, and we're still salty. Like, it'd be great. I would love to shower at your house.
Oh
That's
man,
awesome.
we can get that going. If it's just a
That's
simple
not
shower,
a problem whatsoever.
Yeah, we'll you got a network of people that will say, please come and take a shower. That is so awesome, guys.
And we'll be out there somewhere.
We'll be out there.
At least at the final. But I'd like to stop somewhere in the middle as well, do a little festival.
Well, that's the thing. Like everyone wants to be there for a celebration, and the ending. But no one wants to show up in the middle of Iowa or Kansas.
Shit, I'm down.
When it's like no one's out there, and you're like, it's just you and me, buddy. It's like
Iowa's too far north.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the route is gonna be South
Oklahoma.
Carolina, Tennessee, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California.
Gotcha.
So
Nashville will be a good one to go to.
So the
Nashville will be a
big
good
cities we're going to be going through is Nashville, which apparently might have some sort of restriction with COVID right now as far as congregating, which is sucks. But it's going to be Nashville, Oklahoma City, Albuquerque, Phoenix, I think.
Ooh, Phoenix would be a cool one too.
That would be
And
a good
then LA
Oh yeah.
are like the 5 really big
Oh, yeah.
ones.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's gonna be That's gonna be incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine that you said like it's gonna be you and your buddy coming out. By the end, there's gonna be like flags and like who knows what type of caravan's gonna be in the
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
think about this.
That's my hope, but I can't hope on that.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
So how would you want to celebrate?
how would I want to celebrate?
Yeah, when you get to California. Like, what
I
is-
I want everybody to walk into the ocean together.
that's the celebration.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for like the really like small symbolic gestures.
Yeah.
Like cuz I'm a sucker for a good story, right?
Yeah.
And like that's the kind of shit that makes me cry, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I probably will regardless, but
course.
like if everybody did it together, because some people are like, you should do this alone, like it's your journey. It's like, nah, I've got many of my own other journeys
Yeah.
on the way. Like I can do those by
Yeah.
myself, but like this isn't about us.
Yeah.
And so having like hundreds of people like walk in together would be like have me on my
Consider
knees.
it
Wait, let me
done.
ask you this: Did you have a good connection of community? And I'm asking because I don't see the ring in Aggieland. And oh, I see. It's
You
on
got
that
it.
side.
There it
There
is.
it is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on this
So then
one.
you did. You already had that community.
There's
My
a
sis-
whole culture over
Oh.
there.
that's actually where I started Fourwards, was through the guys that I met through our organization, Aggie Cowboys. It's where I made my best friends. I'm actually like my freshman year potluck roommate. We didn't even know each other. We like just got matched
Yeah.
together. We ended up rooming together. Ended up becoming best friends. We roomed together for 4 years. He moved to New Braunfels. He actually moved in with me. His name's Jack. He lives with us right now in a 2-bedroom house with 3 people. He lives in the loft in a twin-size bed. And like that is my community. Like we have a really tight-knit group of people like from A&M.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that are on Fourwards right now are Aggies as well.
That's cool. My sister's an Aggie. My youngest sister, Carolina.
Yeah.
That's cool. And it's a great community. It's a fun time. We've partied.
We
I've-
partied there. There's
quite
a lot of
bit.
tradition. A
Yeah.
lot of tradition.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
It's a little culty.
It's very cool.
Well, it's just because
We
of the
love it for
core,
that,
the
though.
core, right? I mean, there's a division of just military influence, right? And I think there's that organization to where, like, if you're going there, you're driven to begin with. You're going to move somewhere and probably do something. And I think that's the cool thing about it, is that, like, you talk about the college aspect. Well, Balder's my best friend. We met in college, and we met in fraternity. And I don't know how it happened one day. We just started hanging out.
We're still doing the same thing.
We're still doing the
Throwing
same thing. We're
parties.
throwing parties. We have get-togethers. And it's cool because, like
I
you
was
said,
social chair, and all the parties were
I
at
can
my
see
place.
that.
But getting together those ideas, I was telling him, I sent him his this picture one time. These 2 guys, Kappa Sigs out of Stanford, they were like co-founders, I think, of Uber,
Oh yeah.
and they started when they were really young, and now it is what it is. And I showed it to him, and I was like, this is our story. These 2 guys that met that decided you could make a big difference by simply just changing each other's world, and then you just kind of resonate and the ripple effect happens. And so what I imagine is, we keep talking about America with this ride. This is an international deal. This is a global phenomenon that you're going
Yeah.
to
What if
create.
you just like jumped on a boat and then just continued?
Because you know someone's going to say that.
I
Like,
am-
why didn't you just
It's like,
keep
well, you
going
didn't go to-
west,
you didn't go to
right?
Hawaii.
I am not going to say where I will and will not stop. I have no idea what the other side of 55 days looks like.
Shannon, from YTX.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend, or I think fiance now.
Don't put any ideas
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
head.
don't put it-
he swam from fucking like I think Hawaii to California or something like that. So maybe that's how you continue.
The ultimate like global triathlon.
That's all it is.
And then I run across Hawaii
And
and,
that's
get
your
back
new
in the
thing. It's
water.
like, when I started this business, now all I do is just travel across the world, and I get, people do it.
Yeah.
They show up, and I inspire them. It's
Oh
like,
my God.
I mean, but what if that was? What if that was like your calling? You loved it, and you're like, I'm just gonna keep moving.
Yeah.
To
Keep
help-
moving forward.
Keep moving forward.
Although you're going west. Yeah, that's forward.
Yeah, with the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, like I said, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, right. Like you got to stop. Like my imagination, my creativity already
Yeah.
is like, it brought me before I'd even run a marathon or finish 75 hard. It brought me to like, I'm gonna ride my bike across America. So like, I've at least got to start this thing before I'm like, what's the next thing? You know,
Yeah, and
like,
you're like,
I'm just gonna keep going.
and you
know?
said that when you're probably delusional through your
I mean, they
marathon.
make bikes that ride on water. just
If
saying.
anything, I would have to swim it.
I saw
but
those
I'm not
ducks.
even
They have
gonna.
those duck bikes on Town Lake that you float on the water and you're paddling a duck.
Like row. I could row. I mean, like
See,
rowing would be
now
cool.
we're talking there. See,
Rowing would be really cool.
See, he
Actually, there is a thing I've been wanting to do. They do this. It's the longest canoe race in the world, and it's here in Texas. It's 185 miles or something like that. And I used to be in a canoeing team in Michigan for a couple of years, and that was the one that like everybody's like, that's the one to do, because it's like 4 days or 5 days, and you have to like basically sleep on your canoe or like take turns sleeping between the teammates that are doing, because it's a four man canoe kind of deal.
That's super cool.
We should do that.
Yeah.
See, hold on. See, before you get him ahead of himself,
Yeah,
he
like-
needs to
So
finish
hurry
it.
up and finish
Yeah,
that.
hurry up and finish that. You already know it.
So hurry up with 55 days.
Yeah.
When is this, by the way?
This is going to be, so originally my birthday's on May 31st, and originally we were going to take off on that day because I was like, I want to do something just like super profound on my birthday. Like a lot of people want to go like drink and, you know, just kind of like forget. I want to go and like embrace.
Yeah.
So that was the original goal, but we're trying to get more mission-based brands and businesses on board to make this possible, and so I think we're going to give it a little bit more time. We're probably going to, so the goal is to start by mid-June.
This year.
Of this year, yeah. And we, of course, I came up with this like a month and a half ago.
Yeah,
So
you give yourself just enough room
Yeah.
to get in shape for
just
this.
just a little more
Yeah.
time than I did for my marathon.
Well, this IV will get you closer. You can't mention the lactic acid, so the stuff that's in there, it clears out all that lactic
I mean,
acid.
I feel good. I'm kind of like
Yeah, I know.
hype right now.
I know. Well, hopefully if this is what you need, and we have to give you mobile IVs in between your downtimes, dude, we'll do that. We'll have, we talked about mobile like ice baths.
Yeah,
Like
mobile
somehow
ice
we could
baths.
figure out how to do that, right? And then like I was thinking like if I brought my table, it's portable, right? Set it on the side and adjust. Bring my Graston tool, of course.
Don't tease
right?
me. Don't
I
tease.
know,
Oh
right?
God, my favorite tool. Which
Hey, and that's going to save your Achilles and your tendons. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a myofascial release tool that basically is the most painful deep massage you could ever imagine, and it works.
I've had tattoos. It's worse.
It's worse. And you know what's funny? Both you and Baldo basically had the same injury due to fucking marathon running. And it's incredible because out of the most painful places to do muscle release on people, the Achilles has to be one of the worst.
I've torn both of my Achilles.
Yeah, and so it's like when I was working on his, I had to give him a pillow so he could yell into it, because he was like, I think he was at our house and like I was like, the kids are asleep, you know, my wife's just like, you know, like she's like, shut up, you know, like, and so I was like, and he was like, man, this is incredible. It really hurts like hell, but like I can actually move around now, and before it was locked up.
And that relief that you were talking about earlier, like after it stops,
It's
like,
gone.
oh,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my, it's like, oh,
It's
and
worth
then you
it.
start
There's
to
a little
get,
bit of masochism going on there too. But
I try not to smile when I'm doing it. I swear to God, I'm not. People think I'm smiling, but I do know. Put it this way: if you did it over a muscle that wasn't injured, it wouldn't really hurt at all. So that just tells you how much damage you do to your body that you didn't realize. So the repeated wear and tear. Imagine this. You talk about like extreme measures. So there's a guy we know. He did a 50-mile hike in the mountains, west of America, I think.
50-mile run.
50-mile was it?
It was a trail run.
It was a trail
an
run.
ultra.
Yeah.
He fasted the entire time, and he came in, got adjusted, like, you know, a couple days after he got back. And he's like, I felt fine. All the people I was with, they were hurting, and they ate, and they had all kinds of protein things and everything. He goes, I didn't have anything, and I felt amazing. And I was like, are you serious? And I was like, I don't even know how that's,
He did put in like an extra like 15 pounds.
He
before that.
started fasting keto, like he'd practiced it before. He had worked on it before, and he only did it just to prove how far he could push his body. And this is coming from a guy who used to do speed golf.
His name's Dude.
He does speed golf. You ever heard of speed golf? You literally think it's exactly what it is. You try to finish as quickly as you can. And he's like running, doing
And he's one of the
movements.
best.
He's one of the best in the world. And he comes in.
His
these are the
name's
people,
Dude.
And these are the people like you who come in and just say, like, I want to do this. So imagine we tell him this thing, and he would probably say, here's what you got to do in these parts, you know, and you got to do this. And I'm like, yeah, because what will happen is it saves you that last leg, right? So now I'm thinking, like,
Dude,
all right,
we need to bring him back.
I got to get you prepared. I got to get your muscles in order. So that means that all your recovery starts right now, right?
Yep.
The stretching.
The what is it, pre-covery?
Yeah, the pre-covery.
Yeah.
All the stuff right now. So that way when you get done, you'll probably be okay. and then you have to be ready.
Probably.
You'll probably.
My ass will be a little sore, but
I don't know, man. I mean, you won't be able to sit down for like a month, right?
Yeah, you're gonna have a permanent ass seat.
Like the groove right there. That's
Yeah.
hilarious. Oh man. Well, you give yourself 2 months. We got enough time. We're gonna see each other plenty.
Yeah.
So I have no doubt that we'll get you in order. You got supplements, so we'll be happy to help you get everything in order as far as your supplements.
yeah.
And then
Get those adrenals on lock.
get the adrenals. We get the adrenal support. All right.
Yeah,
So
you're gonna get plenty of sun, so you'll be fine.
what I imagine if you wanted to do the ultimate science experiment, you have tracking measurements like Whoop and.
Oh
or,
man, I my ultimate goal at Whoop, if you are listening to this, is I want you to run experiments on me. Like that's also a big aspect. I love science. I love like if y'all wanted to put me on a single supplement for a week and be like, we're gonna see how this affects
Oh,
you.
we got you.
Like I want to do that. Like Whoop, I want them to run studies. Like as
HRV.
far as blood work goes, as far as VO2 max. Like I want to do all the possible tests before and after. Like really see what that change looks
Well, I
like.
can tell you,
Dude, we should
if,
totally
if,
do a brain
if
scan.
Whoop's already listening to this or someone knows it, you
Really
should
should.
just know we're already going to do it. So, like, like I was just thinking right now, we have that brain scan machine back
That's
there.
what I was gonna
That's
say,
the
yeah.
EEG machine. It's a WAVI. And we can measure your brain wave before you do all this and then after. And just see what it did to your brain.
Can you imagine the mindfulness?
That's what I'm saying. You can measure brain waves in this machine. So if you have theta waves and your ADHD, which you're probably a little theta all the time, imagine if it reverts it and it does like more beta or something, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, you completely changed the frequency of your brain.
And that's like the take on it is like my take on it as well is like physical activity and mental health, and like being like more mindful is a huge aspect of mental health too. So like, what does hours on a bike look like? I mean, of course, a lot of days are going to be kind of awful because I'm going to be like in a bad mindset.
And it's summer.
How do I fix that? And it's hot.
Well, so I look at this. Like, let's say you're in a lab and we're doing the VO2 max and you're running there like you say the Gatorade Institute or something, right? I'm like, what are we measuring? So what I'm saying, like, all right, we're trying to keep your serotonin and dopamine levels high, like consistent, right? Because we don't employ because you get your endorphin kick from your runner's high, and after a while that's gonna be long gone, right? So it's like, all right, Bliss helps you keep your serotonin and dopamine high, right? I told you about the Bliss and all that, and that's mental wellness, right? But it's also good joint support. So the cool thing is they're like, all right, we'll measure that. We'll do our stuff to basically, we could have you pee in a cup halfway through to see what it does to your adrenaline. Like we can measure your serotonin and adrenaline halfway through. We can measure your inflammatory markers for your cardiac muscles. We can measure your kidney, like how hard it's working, how you're kicking out insulin.
Well, we can also make a daily like Fourwards movement stack box.
Oh yeah, we can do. See, that's the thing. We're already doing this. So if Whoop's listening, anyone else is listening, we're already going to do this.
Wheels are turning.
And so what's going to happen is the biggest measurement that we're going to need from you is your HRV and sleep.
Yep.
Because it'll tell you, hey, you recovered 80% today. Imagine like towards the end, it's like he's still at 80% recovery rate like every day. And this last leg was through the mountains and it was fucking hard, and he's already 80% still. He's got this. And you'll know it too because you're tracking in real time. Like imagine it's like, hey, mile 1,000, we give you a urine sample to measure like everything just to make sure everything's good. Because we want to see in real time what's going on with it. So
we can get a couple labs to donate actually.
Yeah, we can. This is a science experiment on science experiment,
which
right?
is just so fun. I love that kind of stuff, and I know that y'all love that stuff too.
Oh yeah, well that's part of the of saying this inspires other people to take care of their health. Because I'll tell you this: if you never thought about it this way, there's a gym in town that had and has a reputation as being a pretty high intense hit workouts. And this lady did our labs. After a 2-hour workout, she worked out there at the gym and then did a 4 or 5 mile run afterwards. Then did a blood draw. The labs that we measured were measuring damage to her heart muscles, and the lab called a week later. Is like, what happened with this patient?
No, I think they called us like, hey, you need to call her.
Yeah, you need to call her. Is this patient okay? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's going on? And they're like, well, there's this marker in here that looks like it showed she just had a heart attack right after the blood draw. And I was like, but that's impossible. I saw her, and she was fine. Well, what is she an athlete or something? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, man, we see this all the time. And I was like, you mean to tell me she worked out so hard that she literally caused the same damage to her heart the way a heart attack would? And he's like, yes.
Yeah.
So you imagine then when it comes to the science aspect of it, it's like, Joe, if we're pushing ourselves this hard, we got to see what we're doing to ourselves, and we got to adjust accordingly.
Exactly.
So science becomes another tool to tell you how you're functioning internally when we can't see it on the surface. Like, you come for soft tissues, I adjust you. You know, it's like, but internally, like, what are your adrenals doing? What is your electrolytes doing? You know, what's your heart doing? And so in that case, you're like a car. Right, so I'm saying, and a bike. You are the bike yourself. You're a bike on top of a bike. So then I'm like, I got to make sure you get to all your tune-ups before.
We have to make sure we
Yeah.
keep lube on that chain, like, everything, you know, because for the last couple months, I was talking to John about this. Like, I was not prioritizing my recovery. I was like late night walks. I was doing this 75 hard challenge, and like I was up until 2 a.m. and then I'd wake up at 6:30 and I would just run it back. And I was like, man, I'm getting red recoveries every single day. Like, this sucks. Like, I wish I could get more sleep. But lately this week, like, I've been really, even like, you know, in the last like 2 weeks, I've been like, recovery is crucial because like, the goal is not to drive my body into the ground. You know, like the goal is to be like, all right, how can I sustain peak performance?
Yep.
You know, and that's mental, that's physical, that's like doing all these things and being able to continue doing them and not turning 30 and being like, man, the ages from 26 to 30 were great, but it's over. You know, like, I want to keep doing this stuff.
And you see that with like NFL players, right? They basically destroy their bodies, and by the time they're 35 and retired, you know, like, they either have a whole nother life ahead of them, or come 40, 50, like, stuff starts happening with their concussions and all that stuff too. So even that aspect, like, that's a whole nother mental wellness that no one's talking about. Imagine the brain scan that we do, and all of a sudden you're talking about brain health in a whole nother light. And I do believe that what you're doing is going to help so many people. We're trying to journal it from every perspective, right? And
Yep.
And I think that it's probably going to lead to many more things. So I don't know what it is, but I'm very much honored that we get to play a part in this. And you're an inspiration. And I think that was what I knew first time when we met. That I think that you were put here to inspire others. And I think that's your biggest message. And how you duplicate that message is what you're doing right now. And I believe, like, when we talked in December up to now, just in the short, 4 or 5 months, you have such a great game plan, because it's like, well, I'm just going to make things happen. I mean, that's what it is. Like, I'm going to put action, and I love people who take action, and you're a man of action. So congratulations. You will be successful, and this race will be a success for you.
Hell yeah.
Well, I shouldn't even say a race. It's not a race.
Yeah. It's a marathon.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say.
This event, whatever, this time period, whatever.
This
But
bike
it'll be a success for all of us, and
This
that's kind of the
awareness
goal.
challenge.
It's a community ride.
Yeah.
That's it. I love it.
And like, and just having that like positive influence, I think, is crucial. Because like throughout this, other people are going to be able to see like how much I'm prioritizing recovery.
Yeah.
And you know, the people that join, I'm be like, hey, like, it's time for bed. You know, like,
Yeah.
it's time to go to sleep. Like, as much as we're enjoying this campfire, like, I've got a side of my bargain to uphold, and like, I got to go to bed at 9:30.
It's not
you
a
know,
party if you're going there, right? It's like the party tents are going to be down the road here. This is the sleeping tent.
the party is from like, you know, 5:30 to 7:30 with water, and then after that, it's like, all right, it's time for everyone to go start getting ready for bed.
You mean it wasn't Burning Man the whole time you're going?
Yeah,
there?
yeah,
It was
right.
Like just Burning Man all night long.
Yeah.
Like
We could bring a flatbed and just have it like a rave bed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We could.
Just in front.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like right in front of
It
you.
sounds like a scene out of Mad Max.
Well, we could
you
have
know?
like a disco ball, and then like some kind of Mad Max like thing going in front of you, and just like fireworks going off to the side,
yeah.
and just house music, just playing industrial music and shit.
Hell
like,
yeah.
one time,
Why
right?
not?
Yeah, fog machine and everything.
Yeah. All right, so social handles and stuff.
We're
like
all
that.
so imaginative.
I
We're
know,
like
right?
talking
Well, the
about
thing
like,
is that we
dude.
make it happen. Like, that's the thing.
Well,
Like,
yeah, because we'll be like, well, here's the thing. I have family in Oklahoma City, and like we know people in Nashville, so it's very easy for them to be like, hey, we got this buddy coming by. Like, make it special for him, and all of a sudden, like, put you on a freaking billboard or something, for no reason other than to say like, hey, we did this for you.
yeah.
Right? You know, it was like, and it was
Yeah.
maybe you from when you were like 21 in your college days or something, right?
My not so great moments, I'm sure.
It's like, look how far you've come.
Yeah,
right?
for real. Keep moving forwards.
Look at you in that tutu up there.
that's funny. Yeah.
Well, all right. So if they were to follow along,
Yeah.
and they were to say, I want to support you along your path, how would they get a hold of you? How would they reach you?
Okay, so our website is gonna be up and running, forwardsmovement.com. spelled FOURMOVEMENT. My social handle on Instagram is Joe Lindley 16 LINDLEY. Fourwards movement. It's a little more complicated on Instagram, but it's the number 4 WARDSMVMT.
Yep.
And that's where we're gonna keep up with the race. I mean, keep calling it a race. I don't know what to call it now.
Yeah.
With the event, with the challenge,
ride.
whatever it is, with the ride, we're gonna call it the ride.
The ride.
We're gonna have like daily updates on Instagram stories. We're gonna go live on TikTok as well, which is TikTok is a huge component of this. That's how we're like getting people on board. Joe Lindley 16 on TikTok. I think the plan is to do like a live every single day at lunch, because we're gonna ride in the mornings and we're gonna ride in the evenings, because you obviously don't want to be riding in the heat of the day through Albuquerque, New Mexico. Like I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah, no kidding.
Phoenix gets
I have
really
to bring an
hot, too.
oxygen
Yeah.
tank with me too.
For real. So that's how you can follow along. I mean, follow along on the website. One of the big things we're going to be doing with Mental Health of America, and this is where we want your support, is we're going to be partnering with them for a T-shirt. So like the proceeds for this T-shirt go to, like, if you don't know how to support, if you don't know if like you can give, anywhere from $10 to $100 just to donate to the fundraising link, you can buy a T-shirt and the proceeds will go to Mental Health of America.
There we go.
And that's kind of a way for us to put our artwork out there while also giving you something in return for supporting us. So if you could help us support this mental health awareness drive, that is what is most important here. We want to make sure that the word gets out that it is not bad, it is not unnormal to feel alone, and we want to make sure that you feel like you have a community of people that will support you through the hardest times in your life.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
I love it. Thank you for being part of our community.
Thank you so
The
much
Hdyh
for
Health
having me.
Podcast.
You got this shit knocking, though.